Kishan Goplani, a father of 2 daughters, died a slow and painful death. He began work as a casual laborer and was promoted to a skilled laborer working in the boiler maintenance section of a power plant. It was during this period that Kishan Goplani came in contact with the asbestos dust that eventually killed him. One of the many lost souls claimed by asbestos. A mineral that could resist fire and acid and wear down steel parts of machines was unlikely to be very forgiving for those who worked with it.
Hazards associated with asbestos are very well known. Asbestos is no doubt, whether it is white asbestos or it is a blue asbestos, it does cause cancer of the lung.
If the worker is exposed after say several years, 4-5 years, he may develop tightness in chest, breathing difficulty on exertion, and maybe later on chest pain and cough. They lose weight as they go on and become more and more disabled.
In 1995, the Supreme Court passed a judgment to the asbestos industry in India after 9 years of a lawsuit against a public interest litigation filed in 1986. Even after 8 years since the judgment, the 6 directives have not been implemented. It has failed to protect the health of asbestos workers and their families. It has failed to get any compensation due to them for disease and death.
As far as the workers of this industry are concerned, it is very unfortunate that we always claim that there are no cases of lung cancer, but if you look at the structure of this industry, most of these workers are contract laborers and there are no records, although the Factories Act and Mines Act in the country says that there should be pre-employment and periodic medical examination of these workers. I have my own doubts that whether such things is it possible to take and such records are being kept.
जब उठ बैठने की ताकत नहीं रहती है शरीर में, कितना उसके पीछे मैंने खर्चा करा, सिविल पोखरा खाना, सिविल वाले ने जवाब दे दिया, पोखरा वालों ने जवाब दे दिया, पैसे था, फिर बाद में प्रकाश डॉक्टर की दवा करी, उसने भी जवाब दे दिया।
आप काम कहाँ करते थे?
साबरमती पावर हाउस टरबाइन डिपार्टमेंट।
आप कितने साल काम किए?
20 साल।
वहाँ पे आप क्या काम करते थे?
हर एक काम, साफ सफाई का, नट बोल्ट खोलना, लेगिन साफ करना, जो भी लेबर वर्क है वो मैं ही करता था। सांस लेने में बहुत तकलीफ है।
खांसी भी होता है?
खांसी भी होता है।
શરીરનો શ્વાસ વધારે ચરસ, પોપલોની વધારે છે, હેડવા ચાલવામાં થોડીક તકલીફ પડે છે, સીડીઓ પર ચડવું પડે, અત્યારે હાલે લેગિન એવું કંઈ આડું અવડું કામ આવે, તોડફોડનું બધું આડું અવડું તો અમારે કરવું પડે, લેકિન અમારા મિસ્ત્રી હાથે અમારે કામ કરવું, સીટો લગાવવી પડે, સીટ પેલી કાચની આવે છે ને એ સીટ બાંધવી પડે, સ્ટીમ પાઇપ લાઈન ઉપર ઊનમાં મિસ્ત્રી અમે બધા અને ખાંસી એને પેલું નાકમાં જાય ને તો ખાંસી ચડી જાય છે વધારે.
કંપનીએ કોઈ જુદા તમને પૈસા આપ્યા છે? આ બીમારી થઈ છે તો કોઈ કમ્પેન્સેશન આપ્યું છે, પૈસા આપ્યો છે, કોઈ લાભ આપ્યો છે?
એવું કશું કોઈ નહીં આવ્યું અત્યારે હાલમાં તો કશું નહીં.
Workers are not told that inhaling asbestos dust is hazardous. Companies do not provide face masks, separate work clothes, no changing room and no shower. The factory inspectors and the ESIC hospitals collude to give the industry a clean bill of health.
Seeing the very toxic nature of the asbestos fiber, we are reducing we have recommended ministry to reduce the emission standard to 0.5 fiber per cc, and Ministry has accepted that recommendation. The workplace standard which is notified in the Factories Act, which was 2 fiber per cc, is being reviewed now, and I hope that it will be further reduced to a reasonable level.
The word control is vague. Means you don't define what do you mean by control. So when the control is, there is no definition of control use anywhere mentioned. According to them, whatever measures they are taken, they are as per control measures.
While 36 developed and developing countries have banned all forms of asbestos, the Indian government is still planning and contemplating enforcing of 1 fiber per cc emission standard. This standard is 10 times the international limit of 0.1 fiber per cc. The World Health Organization reports and the World Trade Organization judgment emphasizes that white asbestos is carcinogenic and controlled use is not safe. Ban is the only precaution.
It has happened in other countries. It ideally should happen here. I mean, I would ideally call for a ban on its manufacture.
Even in the organized sector of industry, there are cases of asbestosis, and if the asbestos concentrations are sufficient to produce asbestosis, then they can produce lung cancer also.
I feel that all concerned who are involved with these industries must read the writing on the wall. And we must realize that here is a substance which is a definite health hazard. It causes asbestosis, it is linked to mesothelioma, and it is linked to lung cancer. Such a dangerous, potent danger to the human health, we must progressively restrict its use, and to do that possibly we do not have any other alternative than to ban its use.
Globally, in the civilized society, asbestos is out. It is no more used in civilized society. Mining is banned, industrial use is banned, use for domestic purpose, house building, it has been banned in most of the civilized countries. But till time here in India, as there is no legislation, it is still being used. I think it's right time to say goodbye asbestos.
The government of Canada reacted to the French asbestos ban by bringing a trade dispute at the World Trade Organization. Canada claimed that under regulation to protect workers, consumers and the environment, there was no need to ban white asbestos. Doctors and scientists proved that white asbestos is a killer and causes cancer. Canada lost the case. The World Trade Organization gave the verdict that France was free to ban asbestos totally. It was the only way for France to protect the citizens from asbestos disease and death. In India, government regulations on asbestos, like the Factories Act of 1948, the Indian Mines Act of 1952, and the Environment Protection Act of 1986, exist to prevent and control asbestos exposure. But enforcement of these regulations by government authorities are non-existent.
खान पे जब काम करते थे तब आपको कोई बताता था भाई ये कि बीमारी जो काम कर रहे हो इससे बीमारियां होती है, कोई बताता था?
नहीं, कोई बताता नहीं।
कोई डॉक्टर आता था वहाँ पे?
नहीं साहब।
वहाँ काम करने के लिए कपड़े मिलते थे दूसरे आप लोगों को? और घर का कपड़ा
नहीं तो हमारे कान के ढक्कन दिए, नहीं टोपे दिए, नहीं मुंह के ढक्कन दिए, कुछ नहीं दिए।
अभी काम कर रहे हो?
अब नहीं करता,
बीमारी
छोड़ दिए,
बीमारी की वजह से छोड़ दिया। ये बीमारी आपको कितने साल पहले लगी है?
माइस पे आता बीमारी लगी है, पेट में दुखे, चोट लगी है, छाती में पड़ गए थे, तो एक ही खाड़ी चोट लगी है, पूरे शरीर में लाल करने पेट में दुखे है।
पेट में तो खांसी वासी आती है?
खांसी कनिक उड़ावे, कनिक उड़ावे, तो एकदम आवे, हाथ नहीं लेवे दिए, साथ लेवे नहीं दिए।
आप जब काम करते थे कोई पैसा मिला आपको? नहीं मिला। बीमार पड़ने के बाद कोई पैसा मिला? नहीं मिला।
बीमारी का पैसा भी नहीं मिला।
It's a very, very tricky thing to establish a linkage between a particular exposure and the disease. Now, if you don't have the records, if you don't have the monitoring, if you don't have a regular medical surveillance, there is no way, even if a person lands in my hospital, my clinic, that I can establish with certainty that it is a disease because of his work. So obviously it's a very good excuse for anyone to say, well, this has not been caused by work.
See, actually interesting thing that they do not want to tell to the society that there is even one worker of suffering from asbestosis. They want to say it is discredit to them to say that one worker is suffering from asbestosis. What is there, what they want to convey to the people or to the concerned society, that on the name of asbestos we are less likely to pay.
In the US, 600,000 litigation cases are registered and litigation costs are expected to rise to a staggering $275 billion US dollars, of which more than $50 billion US dollars have already been paid. Over 70 companies have gone into bankruptcy, including the leading American asbestos manufacturer, Johns Manville. In the Senate of the United States, a legislative initiative called the Asbestos Compensation Fairness Act of 2003 seeks to create a trust fund of $108 billion US dollars to compensate victims of asbestos exposure. The trust fund would pay for the expenses of treatment of asbestos diseases, stop the flood of asbestos litigation, prevent bankruptcy of companies, and reduce the loss of employment. The United States Congress is simultaneously discussing the Ban Asbestos in America Act of 2003. This bill insists that any bill that aims to provide treatment expenses of asbestos diseases must prevent future asbestos illness by banning the use of asbestos in America totally. The large US and European multinational companies that operated major asbestos interests in India 20 years ago have since gone bankrupt over the liabilities in the US from the many lives asbestos destroyed. In the 1990s, Eternit Everest was 52% owned by the Belgian multinational Etex. With the number of writs served on Etex Belgium rising, the company took a global policy of not continuing to own interests in asbestos. Etex recently sold its interests to Associated Cement Companies, an Indian firm that previously owned 26% of Eternit Everest. Now that Indian asbestos interests have bought out Etex, Eternit Everest is 100% Indian. The workers of Eternit Everest are now in the same predicament as the workers of the Union Carbide plant in Bhopal, the worst industrial disaster in the world. In the West, asbestos workers have filed lawsuits against asbestos companies and won their cases successfully. In the past, even Indian victims of multinational asbestos companies filed claims for personal injury in the West. They were compensated by the parent company in the country of incorporation. In India, asbestos companies cannot be sued in court because laws of the land are toothless. Does this absolve Etex Belgium from the moral and ethical responsibility of death and disease amongst Indian workers? The Indian government supports Canadian imports by reducing import duty from 78% to 25%. It promotes asbestos as a cheap product for a poor country.
See, as the debate of banning asbestos is going on in this country for quite some time, and every time the question of debate comes in, the industry becomes very aggressive because there are lots of resources. And the government departments also push their hand back when the question of banning comes in, whereas there is enough data to show, to prove that this is a dangerous material.
End user consists of mainly the people who live under the asbestos roof and the people who drink the water which is passed through the asbestos pipes. As far as the third group is concerned, there should be a greater concern, because this is the group which is quite a large, and maybe millions of people in our country are exposed to this.
The asbestos industry is growing in India. Disease and death is also growing side by side.
It's not only an occupational hazard, but it's a general environmental hazard. Since you can't supervise so far and wide, the only option left is to ban it.
For the last 2 decades, a massive pile of asbestos waste has been lying on hilltops in Chaibasa, West Singhbum district of Jharkhand. Asbestos mining was started by Hyderabad Asbestos Industries in the area.
किस साल बंद हुआ था माइनिंग?
80 में बंद हुआ है।
और कितना मजदूर लगभग काम करते थे?
2400।
2400 मजदूर?
हाँ 2400।
तो ये 2400 मजदूर का काम बंद होने के बाद इनको सारा खर्चा वर्चा सब कंपनी वाले कुछ दिया था?
कुछ को मिला है, कुछ को नहीं मिला है, और मिला है वो भी ये सबको ठीक से पता नहीं है कि हमारा कितना पैसा जमा हुआ है, कितना नहीं हुआ है, इसके बारे में भी नहीं मालूम है। और ये सब का इंश्योरेंस जो जमा हुआ है उसमें बहुत आदमी को नहीं मिला है।
इस आदमी 2400 मजदूर में से कोई बीमार भी था?
उस समय तो माइंस जब चल रही थी उस समय तो ये सबको उतना पता नहीं था, लेकिन ये क्लोज होने के बाद 80 के बाद जो है बीमार, लेकिन बीमार यहाँ पर कोई डॉक्टर नहीं है देहात में, तो अपना अपना लेकर के, लेकिन इसमें कुछ आदमी जो है 10 साल के अंदर 80 के बाद वो बहुत आदमी डेथ कर गए।
किस तरह का बीमारी होता था
इसमें? अधिकतर कफ की, खांसी, छाती। हाँ।
आपका कोई ऐसा साथी था कि जिसका छाती का बीमारी से वो मर गया था या बीमार है?
हाँ, मेरा भाई को मर गया है।
आपका भाई मर गया?
हाँ,
क्या नाम था आपका भाई का?
मधुआ।
उनको क्या हुआ था?
मैंने ये प्लांट में काम किया था ना, तो ढूला है, ढूला मैंने घुस गया।
अच्छा,
अंदर में
घुस गया था?
हाँ, ढूला घुस गया।
ऐसी करके तो पूरा धुला ना, ऐसी करके तो एक बार में इतना घुस जाता है धुला,
एस्बेस्टस का धुला
जी। इसके बाद में क्या करके डॉक्टर ने बोला कि चलो कलकत्ता ऑपरेशन हो जाएगा, 10 साल ऊपर लगेगा बोलेगा। तो मेरा पास 10 साल कोई नहीं है, ऐसे में हमने 6 बजे में थोड़ा हमने इलाज किया, ऐसे भी कम से कम 3 महीने जैसे हो गए, मर गया।
फैक्ट्री वाला एक पैसा नहीं दिया?
कुछ नहीं दिया।
आप लोग गए थे फैक्ट्री वाले के पास कि मेरा पिताजी?
वहाँ तो नहीं गया, लेकिन हम लोग पहले मैनेजर को बोला कि ऐसे ऐसे होता, मैंने उसमें भी बात किया था, लेकिन हम लोग कुछ पैसा नहीं दिए, खाली 50 रुपये दिए।
तो ये सरकार की तरफ से कोई ये इस मजदूरों को लेकर कोई आगे कोई कार्रवाई?
कुछ नहीं हुआ है, कोई सरकार की तरफ से भी कोई आदमी नहीं आया यहाँ पर, और उन लोगों का कोई रिपोर्ट भी नहीं लिया गया है, अभी तक वैसे ही पड़े हुए हैं।
Hyderabad Asbestos Limited, owned by the Aditya Birla Group of companies, closed operation through a lockout more than a decade ago. It has till date failed to deliver some of the basic post retrenchment facilities that should be available to the workers as mandated under the law. The most grievous is the non-payment of Provident Fund dues, the dark side of the secretive asbestos industry, closing the mines and abandoning the workers to die a slow but certain death. In a landmark judgment, the Delhi High Court held the owners of Ubhar Cinema and government agencies such as the Delhi Vidyut Board, Municipal Corporation of Delhi and Delhi Police's licensing department guilty of negligence. The court awarded a compensation of rupees 20 crores to the families of 59 victims who were killed. Criminal investigations are continuing in the Sessions Court against the owners of Ubhar Cinema and the various regulatory authorities.
Now there is a large controversy. There is a demand from a section of society whether we should ban asbestos and go for safer products. I think there is no doubt that banning of any substance, there is no two opinion that asbestos does cause cancer, asbestos is harmful. I leave it to the viewers to decide what they want and what they don't want.
The sheer lack of government constraint on the asbestos industry in matters of health and safety is disturbing. asbestos mines and factories are allowed to operate almost as though government acts and regulations did not exist. Why is the government's regulatory hand so weak? Many reasons can be advanced, but the truth is that asbestos is a known killer, and nothing is done about it in India. Even the Supreme Court's judgment fails to save the lives of asbestos workers. The government's head-in-the-sand attitude to asbestos fails to understand the enormity of the problem. It fails to take a sane appreciation of the risks involved. If the political will existed to deal with the asbestos problem, the short-term financial gain of the few would not justify the mass murder of the many. A total ban on asbestos is the only prevention, since there is no cure against the deadly asbestos dust.